Hi, so basically I wanted to explain why, well, I have just seen this video that is called Why Programming is Hard, and basically I wanted to explain why I think that's basically nonsense. Because I feel that it's like all the world is thinking different from me in that regard, and find that programming is a very tedious thing. But I usually find that it's just the opposite. And what happens here is basically that if you find that programming is hard, it's not programming what's hard. What's hard is that your way of programming is hard. Your way of programming is not clear enough, and perhaps this is surprising or you are doubtful about what I'm saying. But I can guarantee you that if you program in a very clear, specific, short, simple way, anything that you read there, you will understand. The problem comes when people, for example, try to use a lot of different things from the language, for example. So only the person that is programming in that very moment in time can understand that. But anybody else coming has to read all the documentation about, the language for understanding the most basic thing. Another way of making programming hard is by abusing object-oriented programming. For example, by making everything an object and abstract everything instead of making direct the logic of the operation that is going on, If everything is an object and you have to read every object definition for understanding a single line. For example, if the type is an object, the variable is an object, and the operands are an object, and you have to read all the objects to understand everything. Obviously, it will be hard. So I will say that you are better when you operating within a function. You are better using procedural programming and not object-oriented programming. You are better making the code as explicit as possible, And the third thing is that the shortest the functions are, the more abstract they are, and the easier to understand they are, and the easier to test they are. You can test every function independently, And if you see a function that is only 4 or 5 lines, and everything else is inside another functions, you will instantly know what that function does. You won't even need to explain, comment the code, because the operation itself is self-explanatory. And this is also denotes an important thing also, which is that it's not as important how descriptive names are, but how descriptive operations are. For example, having shorter names, less descriptive names, could be even better than having longer ones, if that makes the operation more visible, Instead of having long name plus long name, if you have this plus that, is more easy to understand, So that's the point. The point is making the code as readable as possible and as modular as possible, so it is as abstract and specific as possible. When you have a problem, you know exactly where the problem is, versus having long code, long naming, lots of object-oriented things, using a lot of features from the language. That's the kind of things that you should avoid, and I think that a lot of people do that. Most people do that. That doesn't denote ability on programming. It denotes ability on the technical aspect of programming, but not on the design aspect and the deeper thinking aspect of programming, which is ultimately making as easy as possible to understand the code, so anybody else coming later, including you, will have it easy to understand. That's the most important thing of code: to be explicit, to be small, to be easy to understand at simple eyesight, you know. So don't say it is hard, because it's not hard. You make it hard. You haven't put the time to figure out how to make it clear, okay?